welcome to episode 24 of On My Studio Table. I so appreciate your joining me. I've been checking my analytics and I've found that quite a few of you are also sharing my videos, which is really helpful. So thank you so much if you've been one of those. And I just appreciate the comments and the likes and just the fact that you're watching my videos. It's just very encouraging, and thank you. If you want to support me, I have a Ko-fi account, so you can buy me a Ko-fi or a coffee in inverted commas. You are also able to become a VIP. I have a VIP membership group on Facebook. When you join, you receive a free piece of eco-printed fabric, and there are 2 levels of membership that you can have. So if you choose a life membership, you don't have to pay annually, and you will get a little extra something as well as the piece of fabric. Today I have hanging behind me some eco-printed clothing. As you know, I try to be as ethical and sustainable as possible. I try to stick to natural fibres, although sometimes I will do blends as well, but usually there is an element of natural fibre in everything that I eco-print, including my artwork. The one hanging near the window, which is on my left, is a beautiful tunic that I eco-printed with eucalyptus leaves, and I folded it differently when I prepared it for eco-printing so that the string lines would be a feature on the front. So that's a little bit unusual compared to what I usually do. The suit behind me, which can also be sold separately, is all silk. The jacket and the skirt are bespoke items that were given to me by a friend. So they were actually tailor-made. Very nice quality, a textured silk, which is not too light, so it really hangs well. And the scarf is also silk, which has a bit of a sheen to it and a fringe. And I've done these in a variation of techniques. So the skirt was done in my dirty pot because I wanted it to be darker, and the jacket was done in a pot of onion skins because I wanted it to be lighter. And the scarf also, at a different time, was done in a pot of onion skins. They all feature leaves that I've foraged from our property. So they are very local in influence and in the way that I've done them. I'm also going to share with you some of the stitching that I've been doing, including stitching on paper. And I hope to share a video with you of the Remade Wearable art event, which features 2 of my eco-printed hand-stitched wool clothing items. So if the light is good and I can get some footage, I will share that with you also. I've been having a lot of fun embroidering on my so-called failed eco prints. These are done on photo paper that you put through your printer, and it was just an experiment that really worked out well, as you would have seen in my last couple of videos. So this one, the unknown plant that grows near here, which is lovely and is flowering at the moment, didn't print all that well, and it also made it stick when I turned it over to dry it on a piece of plastic. So little bits of white paper are showing underneath the top layer, which we think might be acetate, which is plant-based. So I'm seeing that as an opportunity to add some stitching. So it's a bit like using embroidery for the mending process, but on paper instead of cloth or clothing. So here are some that I've done, and if you've been following me on social media, you would have seen these, and possibly I did share this one in the last video, but that was my first attempt and I just enjoyed it so much. So I kept going. And this one had less damage and just allowed the patterns and designs on the paper from the eco prints to inspire the design. And I think that's finished. You never know with stitching. Sometimes you look at it a bit later and you think, oh, maybe I should do some more, but I think it is finished. And then this is the one that I'm working on at the moment. I've done a similar design as I did on the first one, as you can see. So this is the one that I still need to finish. And I've done similar stitches. I haven't done any fly stitch yet, so I'm thinking about where that will go, possibly in this section. And I might do a bit more fly stitch here and some more circles there. So we'll just see how this pans out. I will share this on Facebook and Instagram also. But it's just such fun stitching on paper. So if you've never done it before, I would encourage you to try it. In one of the Facebook groups that I belong to, someone asked me to show how my journal cover actually works. So I thought I'd do that before I show you my latest entry in the slow stitching challenge, which is a year long and almost finished. So I'll just undo it. And these ties were actually seam offcuts that were part of some clothing that I dyed with avocado, I think. And I've just attached it to the back with a little bit of stitching, and then it unwraps. So I'll turn it over. It's got a flap on the back which helps to accommodate the journal as it gets thicker with more entries in it. But it's actually just a rectangle. So if I open it out, you can see that it's just a rectangle, and I've folded over one side of it, one side, short side, and stitched that top and bottom to make a kind of a pocket. So you just slide the back cover in. So you can do this with any notebook or journal or sketchbook, and all you need to do is just make sure that's a little bit bigger top and bottom so that it covers the edges and fits nicely. So I hope that makes it a bit clearer for those who are interested to know how I put this together. This is the latest journal entry. I've used a piece of red wool, and the sun has just started to shine in the window, so you can see a few shadows, but hopefully you can still see this clearly. Catherine of K3 Cloth Tales has been taking us through this year-long challenge, and each week we have a different project to do. This week it was about Kantha stitching. Now, a lot of people think about Kantha stitching as just a running stitch, but that's only the beginning of the variety of stitches that they use. And she shared with us a lovely book that demonstrated all the types of stitching that is done when Kantha stitching is worked on fabric or quilts or however it's used. I had mixed success with this. Some of the stitches were quite simple, others were quite difficult. This one was probably the most difficult for me anyway. It's called the mala stitch, and I'm supposed to have perfect little triangles in the middle, but as you can see, they are definitely not perfect. But I did enjoy doing it. And some of them are just simple running stitches. These running stitches are used as fillers, and they just catch a little thread in between each stitch. So you don't even see it much on the back if you do it properly. So I did a leaf shape to fill it with 2 different colours of thread, just to see how it would look. And I used different threads. So here I've used some silk ribbon for a back stitch. We tried a cable stitch, which is a chain with a little French knot type of thing at the base of each chain, and you do it all in one action, which is really interesting. I used a variegated embroidery cotton here and different threads here for the contrasting stitches, which you go in and out using just a running stitch, but going in between the previous rows. So you do 2 rows of running stitch in between each other, and I did 2 different colorways. They're a bit pale, so it's a bit hard to see. This is a wheel. Mine's a bit wonky, but again, I really enjoyed it. And you can make the spokes reasonably straight, or you can do curved lines. You can even do spirals and all sorts of things. So it really demonstrated to me what a variety there is in the stitching, and just to give it a go. My little bit of writing that I've put with it is this. I listen to the birds, each revelling in its own voice. I've mentioned before that we hear lots of birds, especially when we sit out on the veranda for breakfast. And even though there are so many, we can recognise the different sounds as belonging to different birds. We know a lot of them, but there are still some that we don't know. And it's just so interesting to hear the different calls. And they just seem to really sing their little hearts out, I think. I know there are all sorts of scientific reasons for that, but for me it's just pure enjoyment. Underneath, I've put the word listen. I think sometimes we rush around so much that we forget to listen and to notice. Since the last video, I have actually finished these journals, and they've been great to do. My plan was to attach the eco prints on photo printed paper onto handmade paper with double-sided tape, and I did do that. But I did find that on this very textured handmade paper, it didn't stick very well. So you can see this corner is coming up a little bit. So I've been going through them again and using some white glue, which is archival, to stick them down. And I would have mentioned also that the double-sided tape I use is also archival. So the handmade paper has been attached to the cardie paper covers with double-sided tape, and that was fine. It was just the back of the photo print and the handmade paper seemed to need something a bit stronger. I do really like how they've turned out. I've used a mixture of waxed linen thread, so I've used a rust brown colour and an orange colour because they seem to reflect the warm colours in the eco prints. And I'll just quickly show you the finished journals. And you would have seen these in the last video, so I won't go into too much detail here. But I will show you the inside so that you can see what I've done with the inside. So I'll just open it, and I've used a bit more handmade paper inside, plus some sketchbook paper, which I've done in folds. And again, I do this so that I don't waste any paper. So the A3 size sheets I cut in half lengthwise, and then I stitched them in, but because they would have been too long, I folded them. And that makes it very interesting if you're attaching things or doing drawing or whatever it is you want to do, collage. You can actually make it almost a 3D centerfold in the little journal. This paper is quite robust, so it would take stitching, and it would be interesting to see what you might come up with to fill this little journal with. I think also the fact that not all the paper is white can be quite inspiring, so you're not faced with just blank pages. And I think the textures and some of the little bits of plant material and so on that are trapped in the paper would also inspire what you might like to do. In the back, as I mentioned, I usually put my stamps and a little bit of a description and my name, and these will be for sale in my online shop from today. I just need to list them. So that was the first few. This is the next lot. There are 11 altogether. And I really like the way the Lamandra printed a slight orange colour. So I'll be experimenting a bit more with that. And bracken fern is always lovely to work with. Some of the pages are really interesting. So this handmade paper is not paper that I've made, although I have made it myself before, but I purchased this. And this has leaves and bits of string trapped in it, which I think is really lovely. Then your fold out page, and then the back of that page. So there are some really interesting papers that I've been able to incorporate. This one has trapped leaves. And again, really great inspiration for stitching or drawing or whatever you'd like to do. That one has had some kind of fibre trapped in it, which is quite stiff. And I really like the look of that. And this is little fronds, looks like some kind of conifer. And a little bit of string or thread. So it's wonderful what can be done with handmade paper. It's now 2 days after the Remade Wearable Art event, and I'm very happy to say that I did get some really great footage. It was an amazing late afternoon out on the grass in front of the studio, which is where Interweave Arts operates from. Interweave Arts organises art activities for people of all ages, abilities, gender. It's a very inclusive program. And every year they run the Remade event. And I've been going for about 6 or 7 years. I missed last year because we were moving, but this year we made it, and it was just such a wonderful time. I'm sure you'll be inspired by the many, many wonderful ideas that people had about making things, remaking things out of what can be regarded as junk or rubbish. Some of the highlights for me was a beautiful outfit which was inspired by a piece of orange plastic left on a building site. Another one made out of bubble wrap and plastic. The children also entered from Lilydale Primary School, so I've actually opened the video with them because I think it's just so wonderful to get the children involved as well. There was an amazing band. I couldn't include their music in the video, unfortunately, because everything was short clips. It would have made it very, very disjointed. And also the compares words would have been cut off at very inappropriate times and it would have made no sense. So I have replaced the music and I've tried to choose music that fits each entry or each range of entries. Unfortunately, somehow I messed up the footage for my own entries, except near the end, where there was a parade of a few of the entrants, and my sleeveless vest, which is on my far left, was worn by a lovely model who really did it justice. The coat, which is behind me, was modelled by one of the guys called Terence, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank both models for doing such a great job of showcasing my work. I am thinking next year of modelling my own work, which will be a big step for me, but because it's such an inclusive event and people were ranged in age from 8 months to over 80, I think that I would fit in all right. So that will be a big step for me, but I am contemplating that. So thank you to Kim and all the Interweave Arts team for just a wonderful time. you.